Every few years, I get interested in Pokemon again in a different way. This time, I've actually been really loving team building for VGC and am extremely excited, if not a little bit nervous, for Champions to release very soon. I am going to dedicate a video to team building at some point, and that video will technically be the first video in an actual series that I want to make, but that won't be until a bit after Champions drops. I've also been replaying the games on my 2DS, and that process is very grindy. So I was looking for a Pokemon show to watch while I do that. I've done dozens of rewatches of Pokemon from the very start, so I figured I should start from something a little more recent. Black and White I remember being my favorite as a kid, but it's not on Netflix yet, so I decided to watch Journeys instead. It to me seemed set up to be a perfect modern version of this classic cartoon, but it was very disappointing to me for reasons that I will touch on later on in this video. This is why, in my most recent 8-hour straight grind of Pokemon White 2, when I decided to open Netflix and find a show to watch, I didn't continue watching Journeys. Instead, I decided maybe I'll watch Pokemon XY. I remember liking that one a lot too. Then I saw Horizons, and said, oh, that's the one with the girl that might be Ash's daughter. Spoiler alert, she's not Ash's daughter, which I kind of really like. I actually think she's an amazing protagonist, and I would feel bad if she was tainted by having to be a reference to Ash at every important step in her journey. I actually think everything about this show makes me think, holy shit, what a dope concept. I love the fact that the main character is a socially anxious girl named Liko who struggles to befriend Pokemon despite loving them so much. It's a really cool flip on Ash's personality. She also gets this cat Pokemon, Sprigatito, who doesn't outright hate her, but just doesn't vibe with her for a while until they slowly learn more about each other. This is a flip on Ash and Pikachu, where Pikachu hated Ash until he realized how much Ash was willing to sacrifice for him in one episode. Liko and Sprigatito's relationship doesn't feel as rushed to me as Pikachu and Ash does, which I think is pretty dope. You're also introduced to this show as though it was going to take place around a Pokemon Academy where Liko will make friends and grow as a trainer throughout her classes, and go on little mini adventures as opposed to one long journey to accomplish a personal goal through the current region she's in, which to me is pretty dope. We barely ever get to see a trainer academy in Pokemon media, and I'd be down to explore that as a core location for a Pokemon TV show. Then we meet what seems to be this show's Team Rocket, who are trying to steal Liko's necklace. Then later decide that they just want to take Liko herself because she's able to utilize the power of the necklace on her own. It's an interesting twist on Team Rocket where this time they only want the trainer and don't care about the Pokemon at all. Except for this one girl who kidnaps Sprigatito as a hostage, but falls in love with it. And it's revealed that Sprigatito was just using her for food and toys and doesn't really care for her. It creates a fun dynamic for the next few times that they fight each other, keyword few times, because in this show, relationships change and evolve slowly over time and build up naturally. Anyways, I was just kidding when I said that's the Team Rocket. This Team Rocket is an inversion of the classic format in the sense that they want Liko and not Sprigatito, but also, it's not just these 3 people who are after her. It's the entire organization that wants this necklace, and they all have different goals and methods to get it. So we see various other villains appear throughout the show with their own plots to get this necklace that get foiled in different ways, which is a super dope concept. And I'm double just kidding with the premise of the show in general, because it's not only Liko being chased by an entire evil organization, but it's not really a school anime at all. It takes place on an airship that travels across the entire Pokemon world, and they're not going on a small personal quest like becoming the champion or the best Pokemon runway model or whatever Dawn was doing. They're on a quest to find and befriend a black Rayquaza that came out of an ancient Pokeball that this other kid named Roy just happened to have. Also, my favorite part of this show is that the airship is captained by a Pikachu who taught himself how to fly, using Volt Tackle to gain height and then a tail to maintain it. The co-captain of this ship is a Pokemon professor who's this super genius but got really bored with being a Pokemon professor, didn't want to work in a lab. Eventually he's brought along by Liko's mother to meet this Pikachu and realizes this Pikachu can fucking fly. So he's enthralled and he studies this Pikachu and learns more about them. And they eventually build a friendship and decide to travel the world in an airship so that they could always be flying together. I think maybe the dopest concept in this entire show, and one of the funniest details, is that everyone accepts that Pikachu's the captain. It's not an honorary title where they just put a hat on a Pikachu and called it cute. Whenever they're deciding where to go and what their next course of action will be, they look at Pikachu, who folds their arm and goes, Pika Pika. And then they all just understand that they're doing whatever Pikachu wants right now, and Pikachu decides how to help them. I think Captain Pikachu is miles better than Ash's Pikachu. I think they're both great characters, but Captain Pikachu is just so awesome. I don't think it's really that close. One other fun character, the ship's medic, is a former Nurse Joy who quit the Pokemon centers because she wanted to go help Pokemon in the wild instead of waiting around for trainers to bring them in. That's not even a fraction of it. There's so many dope-ass dynamics and decisions that this show makes, but having a good idea is one thing, executing them is another. I think that Pokemon Horizons doesn't just execute these ideas, but it near perfects them. But that's only the ideas unique to this show. It doesn't inherently make it better than the Ash shows. They're both doing different things and can do both of them equally well, if you ignore Pokemon Journeys. Let's quickly talk about this show in comparison to the Ash saga of Pokemon TV, because I think in order to understand why Pokemon Horizons works so well, we have to understand the way that the Pokemon shows used to work. The way that it used to work is that they didn't exactly have seasons of the show. The seasons were more of their own individual TV show that just had similar characters. They would have a series premiere and a series finale. In Kanto, it was Pokemon Indigo League. Then when they moved to Johto, they got their own show that had a title that I don't remember. Then there was Hoenn, Sinnoh, Unova, so on. These shows generally try to forego aspects of continuity between the series as to make them more accessible to new viewers who may not know why Ash already has a full team of Pokemon. All that you need to know is what is told to you in the first episode of each series, which is usually that Ash Ketchum is a trainer from Pallet Town. He wants to be a Pokemon master with his partner Pikachu, who doesn't go in a Pokeball. For some reason, sometimes at the request of Professor Oak, Ash has to visit a new region in the world of Pokemon and, for one reason or another, decides he wants to go on a journey through the region, catch new Pokemon, collect gym badges, and battle that region's Pokemon League in an attempt to become the champion. It's very formulaic. But also, quite notably, we don't see what Pokemon he has already caught or usually hear from his friends from his previous adventure. Now, you're probably remembering a handful of times that they break this rule. But I ask you, why do you remember the times they reference previous series and not the reason why Ash went to and decided to do a journey in the Sinnoh region? It's actually kind of a bad example. The early Pokemon shows did have a little bit more continuity. Sinnoh is actually one of the first regions where Ash didn't have an actual just rematch in mind. He heard from another trainer about the Sinnoh region and thought it would be a fun place to travel to and get gym badges in. And I think that if the Ash shows stayed the way that they were, where it was just each individual series, I think that would be fine. I like the continuity moments. I like when shows feel rewarding to watch for an extended period of time. So I'm not opposed to the idea of Pokemon Journeys. It seems uniquely set up to work as a Pokemon show with continuity. It was their first real show with Netflix and their first attempt at creating a theoretically future-proof serialized show that doesn't need to factory reset Ash every season. Despite part of the show being advertised as the Galar region show, at least to my child brain, this show technically takes place in the Kanto region in a Vermilion City Pokemon lab where Ash and his new friend for this series, Go, work as field research assistants. This gives them a good excuse to travel to many regions around the world and be able to have their own goals and do their own things, because most of the things they do in this show are explained as jobs that the professor assigns them. I think that's a dope concept. And I would say the only way you could really fuck this show up is if in the first 3 episodes you manage to establish that this Ash is yet again factory reset, instead of having a final form of Ash that can live and grow throughout this entire single series. that has knowledge and experience from all of his many adventures across the Pokemon world that would lend to his ability to be an effective research assistant. They just ignore the fact that Ash has seen so much of this world and experienced so many of its mysteries firsthand. Imagine a show where Ash evolves into the role of Brock from Season 1 or Season 2, or the older mentor friend Brock from Season 3, or maybe even Season 4's classic famous mentor figure, Brock, where he's guiding this new trainer who literally caught his first Pokemon in episode 5 of the show, pretty late in. Ash does help teach Go about some aspects of being a Pokemon trainer, but it feels more like Ash is talking about his experience and what he knows, and Go is just there and listening to him and then interpreting it in his own way, as opposed to Ash being a more experienced trainer who's actively guiding Go in certain decisions and actions that he would want to take. I think my biggest problem with Journeys is that Ash doesn't feel particularly as knowledgeable as he should be after journeying this long. It feels even worse because they do go out of their way to try and canonize a lot of his previous journeys. For example, they have an entire episode dedicated to the fact that Ash saw a Ho-Oh in the first episode of the show. In later spin-off seasons of Journeys, I haven't gotten there exactly yet, but Ash meets up with his old friends and has little adventures with them. But they're also outright ignoring continuity between those different adventures that he went on with the people he meets back up with later in the show. Like, why is Ash spending so long investigating this Bulbasaur thing? Bro, you learned that this is how they evolve canonically less than a year ago, and should be instead wondering why they're doing it this way specifically, and why the city isn't prepared for it. Maybe something with how the city was built and is operated is inconsiderate to the wildlife, and we should be investigating that specifically. Why is the point of the Bulbasaur episode that humans shouldn't be helping Pokemon? The problem in this episode is ultimately that the humans invaded and took a place away from Pokemon, and the moral of the story is that it's not our responsibility to help make it right. The Pokemon just have to learn how to work around us? Ash should be battling the fucking mayor of the city over this. This is insanely out of character for him to me. I also think it's weird that Ash is so wowed by being in Unova. He's also confused about Dragonite as a Pokemon. Both of those things are solved by the same series where he was hanging out with Iris, who's the champion of the region, or at least previous champion, and had a Dragonite on her team. It'd be cool if he could just call her up and ask for advice about catching a Dragonite, or where to go when they're in the city. It's honestly a little disheartening, one of the changes that they made in episode technically 2 of this show, especially after watching the Cecilily video about Lugia's origin, that Ash is pretending he just never met her. Lugia and Ash are really good friends. He's met the entire family. It's maybe one of the more popular relationships with a legendary outside of Ho-Oh and his girlfriend Latias. It's actually one of the few times that I know canonically in the TV show he's met and befriended a legendary Pokemon, where usually it's a separate anime movie that is vaguely canon to the show. Anyways, this is all to say that I think the fact that this is the definitive end of Ash's story gets kind of soiled by their inability to drop the pattern of soft rebooting the show every season. I think this would be a good time to make everything canon and effectively repay the viewers who've been following Ash for most of their lives. I know, and Pokemon knows, or they wouldn't have ended Ash's journey, that kids don't care about Ash Ketchum. The only people watching these shows are the people who've been watching it for most of their lives. So having him be sent off is a good idea, and I think a good way to do so would be with the everything's canon, here's a bunch of fan service season that it seems like they did towards the end of Journeys. But even that concept, that dope concept, is tainted by all the things that I just meant. Pokémon Horizons, in a lot of ways, is doing a lot of similar things to Journeys. It's designed as a future-proof Pokémon show that is less intent on focusing exclusively on the newest region and its Pokémon/gimmick, and is more focused on having a consistent cast of characters that evolve and grow with the show, and travel all over the world, then giving that cast of characters a reason to engage with the new region and its Pokemon/gimmick. This creates a way more interesting show that people can be invested in the long run. It's also older and seems to be aging with its audience. I believe the protagonist probably starts around 11 years old, which is the demographic of Pokemon and is, I believe, canonically the age that most trainers start journeying. But in the most recent season, which I did only watch the trailer for because I haven't gotten there yet, the characters are definitely in their early teens, which is an age up about equivalent to the age that the show has existed for, which is pretty cool. The last time a Pokemon show felt like it was aiming for the older audience that grew up with them was Pokemon XY. I think that Pokemon Horizons is what Pokemon TV should have always been. It's the perfect way to showcase this incredible world. Everything about it is, dare I say, an evolution on the previous show, and honestly, while Ash finally becoming the champion and ending his journey is really great to see and super exciting, I think it feels to me more like a Hail Mary in response to the show's lack of popularity. I'm happy to see Ash have his happy ending, and who knows, hopefully we'll see him again. But most importantly, I'm ecstatic that Pokemon finally has a TV show that understands what the best way to engage with this world is and executes it to near perfection. So please, go watch Pokemon Horizons.